Having Google Maps in our palms at all times can make us feel like there's nothing under the sun that hasn't been discovered. But for two explorers in Montreal, Canada, there wasn't anything further from the truth. Daniel Caron and Luc Leblanc grew up near a mysterious cave in the Saint-Leonard borough of Montreal. To them, the site was far more than a teenage playground, it was a keeper of ancient mysteries. Explorers discover a sprawling secret pathway hiding right beneath Montreal. In 1982, Montreal authorities grew tired of chasing away teenagers who were illegally exploring Saint-Leonard Cavern, so they came up with a genius plan. Put a gate on the front entrance and start charging money for entrance. Soon, over 70,000 people had received a sterile, safe tour of the caverns, which bothered spelunker Daniel Caron and Luc Leblanc. See, the center of Montreal is a bustling cityscape with beautiful French details. But there was a whole world underneath it, linked together by the Saint-Leonard Cavern. By so closely controlling who could go in and out, authorities were limiting the potential discoveries. As a teenager, Daniel had spent countless hours climbing around the caves. There was something magical and otherworldly about them, and he couldn't resist seeing how far he could go into its unexplored depths. He was one of the many kids that police were always chasing away from the vast caverns. After decades of exploring, Daniel became convinced that it wasn't just the cave that was worth looking into. He was convinced something was lurking deep beyond its walls. Though it might seem unlikely that a city of 1.78 million people has been host to such a huge secret for so long, the truth is that Montreal hasn't always been the city we know it as. Before it was Montreal, it was called Hochelaga, a small settlement built by the First Nations people native to the land now known as Canada. In the 16th century, French colonists took over and turned the city into a trade outpost. By 1867, Montreal had become a bustling city, the biggest in all of Canada. As people flooded in from Europe, bringing technologies, goods, and disease, the city only continued to grow at the expense of some of the smaller settlements. Settlements like Saint-Leonard became mere enclaves, forgotten, and people had little interest in a cave. The modern-day tourist entrance can be seen below. When the cave was in use, soldiers used it as an arsenal and hiding place. But after the end of the Patriots' War in 1838, it was once again left in the past. By 2016, even with new restrictions and security mechanisms, Daniel was still determined to know more about the caves that had fascinated him as a kid. He knew there was forgotten history somewhere inside, and he was determined to find it. So, he asked for the help of Luc Leblanc, a friend and fellow explorer. Searching the cave meant the world to Daniel Caron, who didn't see it as a mere forgotten relic stuffed with history. For him, the cave search was personal. Some kids had treehouses, Daniel had Saint-Leonard Cavern. Discovering something more in the unexplored parts would justify his childhood curiosity. Enough was enough. Daniel was, once and for all, going to break this case open. With permission from the powers that be, he and Luc bought equipment for their hunt, ready to explore the cave as no one ever had before. They used a technique called dosing. Many consider dosing to be a pseudoscience. The practice involves using metal rods to locate groundwater or buried metals that aren't visible to the eye, and it's mostly used to locate old water pipes in Europe. This led them to a small gap in the rock wall. The spelunkers' hearts started racing. Had they found something huge? "We started digging in a decomposed layer of limestone that was much softer," Luc recalled. "We managed to open a window through which we could see the void beyond." In 2017, Daniel and Luc removed a section of the rock to explore the gap. They squeezed through the opening to find a ginormous open chamber. "It was vast," said Daniel. "We started yelling, 'Yes! We did it! We did it!'" Climbing in, the men realized the space was 20 feet tall by 10 feet wide, far larger than the cave's main chamber. After exploring a bit more, they concluded that it might stretch as much as 700 feet. "It just keeps going. We haven't reached the end yet," said Luc. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They pushed further into the cavern, which reached an aquifer with water 16 feet deep. With an inflatable canoe, they paddled down the water, guided by the light emanating from their headlamps. "For us, it's a major discovery, the kind of discovery you make once in a lifetime." Experts say that northern caves like this normally form when water and ice eat away at the rock for many years, otherwise known as glacial tectonism. Scientists say this particular one happened as far back as 15,000 years ago, during the Ice Age. There's no doubt that this cave is unique, but its power is still too unknown to make public. We want to maintain it because it is our heritage, Canadian officials have said, but also because it has scientific value in terms of the way it is shaped and how it was made. Canadian history can get contentious in that way. The First Nation indigenous to British Columbia's Great Bear Rainforest, the Heiltsuk people have laid claim to the remote Triquet Island for nearly 5,000 years. But archaeologists have dismissed their claim of ownership for one glaring reason. The continental glacier that formed over Canada during the last ice age would have also covered Triquet Island, making it uninhabitable. But even with the facts stacked against the Heiltsuk, a small group of researchers took it upon themselves to uncover the truth once and for all. The archaeologists began an extensive excavation of the remote island in the hope of discovering traces of a past civilization. What they found there not only shocked the entire archaeological community, but it also changed history forever. Beneath several layers of earth, they found remnants of an ancient wood-burning hearth. But how could this be? According to researchers, it would have been impossible for humans to dig their way through the glacial ice to get to the soil below. As they continued digging, researchers unearthed additional artifacts, including tools and weapons. This discovery stumped the team as the Heiltsuk people traditionally didn't use tools of this kind. The Heiltsuk people had derived their food source from fishing and smoking salmon, utilizing small, precise tools to harvest the fish. The tools and weapons found were much larger and likely would have been used to hunt large sea mammals, such as seals, sea lions, and walruses. What's more, the team also uncovered shards of obsidian, a glass-like rock only found in areas of heavy volcanic activity. This discovery also puzzled the archaeologists, as there were no known volcanoes near that part of British Columbia. So, how did this rock and these people get there? The historians deduced that whoever left these artifacts must have traversed the land bridge that existed between Siberia and Alaska during prehistoric times. Yet researchers still needed cold hard facts. Luckily, a closer inspection of the hearth revealed ancient charcoal remains, which the archaeologists quickly brought to the lab for carbon dating. When they received the results, the researchers couldn't believe their eyes. Everything they knew was a lie. According to the carbon dating report, these bits of charcoal were an astonishing 14,000 years old, making them the oldest carbon remains ever to be discovered in North America. Even by global standards, this was an extraordinary find. After all, these simple pieces of charcoal were older than the Great Pyramid of Giza and even predated the invention of the wheel. But that's not the most remarkable fact about this discovery. The 14,000-year-old discovery placed the earliest Heiltsuk at Triquet Island 2,000 years before the end of the Ice Age. Therefore, the island couldn't have been covered by the massive continental glacier. And that's not all. Since Triquet Island was surrounded on all sides by water, the early Heiltsuk would have used boats to traverse the open waters. Boats, however, were not believed to have been invented until centuries later. This meant that the Heiltsuk settled the area 2,000 years before initially believed. If this was the case, then these early men likely crossed paths with some of history's most formidable beasts. As the Heiltsuk people made their way south from the land bridge, they likely had to fend off giant creatures like mastodons, woolly mammoths, and giant sloths. But somehow, these humans survived, and it's likely for one crucial reason. Thanks to the Pacific Ocean itself, the sea level at Triquet Island remained constant for over 15,000 years. So as the sea gradually eroded the surrounding islands, the great beasts of the Pacific Northwest were kept at bay, leaving the Heiltsuk to a peaceful, secluded existence. The most astounding realization that's come to light is the fact that the Heiltsuk people were able to preserve their history orally for nearly 14,000 years. However, they are still being deprived of their history's legitimacy. When the media caught wind of the story, they seemed to focus more on what the discovery meant for the scientific community rather than acknowledge the rich history of the Heiltsuk. To many, the media's portrayal of the nation was seen as highly disrespectful. As a result, University of Victoria student Alicia Govreau, who was present during the excavation, has dedicated herself to shifting the focus of the dialogue toward the Heiltsuk people. The Heiltsuk claim to Tricket Island stands as one of the oldest land ownership claims in the world. Time will tell how this disagreement evolves over time, but it's actually not the strangest land dispute that Canada has faced. One involved not a tribe going against a government, but a single man. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.